Lyndzie Taylor from the Urbana Free Library is back today with some book recommendations. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, as always.
All right, so what is the theme today?
So today we're talking about fairy tales because at the Urbana Free Library we have our fairy tale ball coming up on April 11th, and so I wanted to bring a selection of fairy tales that can be enjoyed by all ages.
All right, so let's start down at the far end. What is that?
So we're starting with fairy tales for adults here. So this one is called The Bear and the Nightingale. So it is an original story that weaves in Russian folklore and Slavic mythology. It's got immersive world building. It was highly recommended to me by our collections manager at the library. And the Library Journal called it a darkly magic fairy tale for adults. So if you're into some dark magic fairy tales, this is for you.
Very cool. That sounds very interesting. I always feel like I add to my reading list whenever you're here. And what about the next one?
This one is called Cinder. This is by Marissa Meyer. This is the first book in a series of young adult books called The Lunar Chronicles. I devoured this series. I read them all. And they're great. They're basically fairy tale characters dropped into a futuristic sci-fi dystopian world.
Ooh.
Yes, so Cinder is based on Cinderella.
Okay.
Except Cinderella is a cyborg, and and then she has adventures where she travels to the moon and all kinds of interesting things. So it's kind of part fairy tale, part Terminator, part Star Wars.
I love that.
It's very cool, very not what you would expect, and each book follows a different character. So the next book is called Scarlet. That's the Little Red Riding Hood character.
Okay.
And then it explores Rapunzel and Snow White and all kinds of stories within there. And it's a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome. And what's next?
So this one is a children's collection of stories. It's called The People Could Fly, and it's a collection of American Black folk tales. So we've got stories that have been passed down for generations, tales of animals, ghosts, devils, even some more realistic stories. And it's just a celebration of the human spirit and, something that we want to make sure that people are able to read. So
that looks great. And I feel like that one, just kind of peeking inside, is an easier, quicker read. So like if you're looking for something that's, compilation, if you have like 20, 25 minutes, something like that, is that the kind of book?
Yeah, it definitely can be read by children. It also has some great illustrations in there as well.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. That's gorgeous.
So the author, Virginia Hamilton, is a Newbery Medal winner, and it's illustrated by Leo and Diane Dillon, so it's got some really great artwork in there as well.
Very nice. And then what about this one?
So this one right here is called In the Moonlight Mist. It is a retelling of a beloved Korean tale. It's about a woodcutter who meets an enchanted deer who grants him his wish to find his true love. And all is well until he finds out that his true love is from heaven and she's homesick. So it's an interesting story.
And where is this story from? Because I feel like that's a story I've heard before.
Yeah, it's a Korean tale.
Yes. Okay, so it's probably, I've heard
it's a retelling, so it's going to be, a specific version of it, but it's been told over time.
Nice. And then this one?
So this one right here is Snow White. And what I love about this one is it's the classic tale of Snow White, but halfway through the book, you realize that you need to turn it over, and it becomes Snow White, the untold story from the Queen's perspective.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I thought that one was a lot of fun. It's by Catherine Heller and illustrated by Karen Stolper. And
I really like the imaging on that with the top and the bottom, just because it's almost the magic mirror, but it's the mirror on top and bottom. That's a really cool illustration. And then what about this last one?
So this one will end with a classic fairy tale. We've got Sleeping Beauty right here. This is the classic story with some really beautiful illustrations. And so this was actually done by a couple. So it's based on the original Charles Perrault tale from 1697, but this one's retold by Mullen F. Craft, and then his wife, Kanuko Wycraft, did all of the illustrations.
And that's the cool thing about fairy tales, I feel like, because they sort of have been passed down and changed and adapted, and you can do so many creative things with very familiar characters, which I feel like then makes reading like a lot more accessible.
Exactly, yeah. And I love a good, retelling or kind of what if story of fairy tales where you get to see different perspectives too.
Yeah, and do you have a favorite fairy tale?
I've been trying to think of one, but I don't think I have just one. But I love them as a concept and, anything related to them. There's actually a series that I didn't bring that you should definitely check out. It's a Disney series called Twisted Tales. And so it's what if stories of all of the Disney characters with their villains. So,
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it's a young adult series, and we have them at the library.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And if you want more information, you can visit us on the web at ciLiving.tv after the show.